Well, the Leafs lose again in round one in a final game, game 7, to the Tampa Bay Lightning 2-1. I'll start this off by saying I'm sorry if I feel sick. I did get COVID, so today has been rough. I was trying to watch the Boston Carolina game and was really struggling during it, but it felt a lot better for the Leafs game, which I'm glad about. I wasn't sleeping through it. Was able to enjoy it, and enjoy it I did. The Leafs played a great game, and they were the better team. The better team throughout the entire series outside of maybe game 4. And I maintain that. Does that make it feel any better? No. The Leafs continue to lose in games that they need to win. And that applies to game 6 this year when they had a chance to win in overtime. It applied last year when they had 3 opportunities to close out Montreal. It applied the year before when they had the opportunity to close out Columbus. 2 years where they could close out Boston. 0 for 10 in those games. So the conversation naturally is, what's wrong with this team? Why do they not have that killer instinct? But today, I guess I will be devil's advocate. I thought that they had killer instinct. I thought that this team came out strong to start this game, played a full 60 minutes, had obviously some errors that bit them in the butt, a couple unfortunate goals against, a goal taken back. We'll get into that, but the team played really well. And my prediction coming into this series was that, yes, the Toronto Maple Leafs would win in Game 7. Ultimately, that didn't happen. But I did say that if the Leafs lose this series, it'll be from being beat and not from beating themselves, which might not make sense to a lot of people watching this, but there is an important distinction there. Every year in the past, the Leafs have beat themselves, outside of probably the Washington series, because that was a team full of rookies and Washington was just the better team. Ever since then, the Leafs should have easily won a couple or more of those series against Boston, Columbus, and Montreal, and now against Tampa. The Leafs were the better team all along. And again, the better team here tonight. Still doesn't matter. The Leafs still lose. What's the issue in this game? Well, it's what I addressed leading into it in my last video after Game 6. The Leafs, in these games where it's most important, struggle to score. And that's funny for a team that has such offensive depth, offensive power, but no contribution from Matthews, Marner. I guess they both had assists on the Riley goal, but Tavares, Nylander, none of them scored tonight. We only ended up getting 1 goal, which does break Vasilevsky's 5-game clinching shutout streak. So I guess that's a positive. But the Leafs couldn't score, and that continues to be our issue. And so what does that mean for the future? Where do we go for here? The Leafs, it's well documented, have all their money, 50% of the salary cap tied up in 4 forward players. And I love those 4 forward players. They are fantastic. But when you're spending that much money on them, you expect them to step up in the biggest games. And I would argue, again, they did tonight. They really, really came to play. But ultimately, we lost because we didn't score enough goals. I wouldn't put this game on Jack Campbell. I wouldn't put last year's game on Jack Campbell. We only scored 1 goal with a minute left in the period. We got shut out against Columbus the year before in the final game. Against Boston, I think we only put up 1 goal. It's a trend here. And how do you continue to spend this much of your cap on players that are meant to score and don't? I'm really conflicted here. I am. It's a completely different feeling from last year. Last year, I was just so dejected, right? To lose in the way we lost, to come out and perform the way we performed, to care as little as we did, to shoot ourselves in the foot like we did against a team that had no business beating Toronto last year, To have lost that series was tough, like really tough. And I, along with 99% of the rest of Leafs Nation, thought it was time for change. And, it was time for one of the big four to be moved, for some major changes to happen in the offseason, because we can't keep doing this over and over and over again. And this year, we lose in Game 7 again. We're eliminated in round 1 just the same. We still have not won a playoff series since 2004. And yet, I've got this overwhelming feeling that, they took a chance on this team. Kyle Dubas doubled down, tripled down on this team. They brought back the core. They added much better pieces around the core. They ended up going on the best regular season run in Leafs franchise history. Went up against the defending 2-time Stanley Cup champions. I thought dominated the series for the most part and got beat. Good teams lose in round 1. That might sound like a cop-out, but it happens. And I think that this year was an instance of that. A good team that didn't deserve to lose in the first round, that didn't deserve to face the Tampa Bay Lightning in round 1, got beat. Because if the Leafs won tonight, what would people be saying about Tampa? That they're not a good team, that their core it doesn't work? No, clearly that core works. The players they have work. And if they had lost tonight, it would be because they got matched up against a top 5 team in the NHL and lost. And that's how I see the Leafs this year. And so, again, I don't know where we go from here. And I said this about Dubas last year, but he's got this impossible task now. Because how many years in a row is this now that the Leafs have been eliminated? Washington, Boston, Columbus, Montreal, Tampa. 6 years in a row that we lose in round 1 with the same core. But there was clearly major steps forward here. And we can't ignore that. People will be coming after Dubas's job. Fans will be calling for Dubas and Keefe to be out, and Shanahan even. All that would do is make the next person that comes in have to make a change, because there's no way you hire someone else and keep the same team. And in that instance, you most likely lose any deal that you're trying to get rid of a big 4 player. Or you keep Kyle Dubas and let him retool this team. And what does that mean? I mean, he's the one that's been facing the media and triple downing on these big 4 players. He's the one that signed Riley to an extension here, and Riley proved that he deserves it. But he's the one that's been supporting these players. So does he go out now and make a change after such a good season, such a good series? Does he again keep the core back intact and run it again next year and hope for a different result? It's a very tough question, and I wish I had answers, and nobody does. Nobody, not even Dubas, not even Shanahan. Nobody has answers right now. We have no idea where this team's going to go. But I really thought that they were getting it done tonight. I really did. And some unfortunate plays, again, officiating that boggles my mind, because the Justin Hall interference play was absolutely interference. I was watching on my own in my room because I'm quarantining. I was actually on FaceTime with my girlfriend so that I didn't feel so alone watching the game. And I told her, as soon as he made that play before the puck even went in the net, I said, that was interference. The Leafs got away with one. Tavares scores. Everybody's going crazy. I said, wow, we got lucky. We got away with one. They call the goal back. And I said, you know what? It's the right call. However, time and time again, Tampa Bay interfered with our players. Nylander could have had a breakaway in the second period that, he was held up. And then when he's going to get the puck is held up, no call. I don't think the Justin Hall play was any more egregious than any of the Tampa Bay plays that didn't get called. So I do have frustrations in the inconsistency. Again, I think the Justin Hall play was a penalty. And if that were to happen against the Leafs, if Tampa were to make that play, Leafs fans would all be up in arms. I'm really upset with the fact that they did that to us time and time again in this series, and it wasn't called. And The last two games, games 6 and 7, were a completely different officiating standard from the first 5 games. Why is that? Why is that? It was clearly intentional because game 6, game 7, the refs don't want to decide the game. Well, guess what? They're already somewhat decided because there's a reason we got to game 6 how we did. There's a reason why we got to game 7 how we did, and that's because the standard of officiating in the first 5 games. They called everything, literally everything. I've never, ever in my life seen playoffs called the way they called them in the first 5 games. And it was actually refreshing because we always said, the regular season is completely different from the postseason. They don't call the penalties the same way. We wish that they did because it doesn't make any sense that they switch it up. And then they did. And it bit the Leafs in the butt. I mean, Tampa took advantage of power plays, and good for them in doing so. The Leafs took stupid penalties. Penalties that we wouldn't have seen in game 6 or 7. Penalties that we wouldn't have seen last year. But they took penalties nonetheless, and they were called. So why all of a sudden do they stop calling penalties in game 6 and 7? The NHL has a serious issue here. A serious issue that if I am in any sort of position in the front office of any NHL team, I am livid and I am setting up some sort of meeting where we're making it very clear that this needs to be fixed ASAP. And that's not a Leafs issue, that is every team. Because I was watching the Boston-Carolina game earlier and they were not hesitant to call penalties at all. Why is that game so different in a game 7 from the Leafs Lightning game? Why were the first 5 games called the way they were? I don't know. It needs to be fixed. Regardless, the Hall play was a penalty. The Leafs technically could have been tied 2-2, and while I'm making this video right now, instead we could be in overtime. But we're not, and the Leafs are out. And what bums me out most is strictly, purely the fact that I can't watch Leafs hockey anymore until October. I'm really not that upset about the loss. I'm just upset that the season's over. And respect to Tampa Bay. Good for them. I mean, in my head, Tampa Bay, I was trying to justify it and thinking that this team, has won 2 Stanley Cups in a shorter amount of time than anybody else. Would they have the same drive? Would they have the same energy? Would they have the same passion? How could they keep running it back and having success? Kudos to them. They played great. I thought the Leafs played better, but they played great. They played great and they deserved the win. Vasilevsky was very pedestrian in the series, but in game 6 and 7, he shut the door. Good for him. Congratulations, Tampa Bay. But again, where do we go from here in the Leafs? I was listening to the CJ show on the SDPN, Steve Dangle Podcast Network, and it was quite refreshing listening to CJ's perspective on the Leafs streak in the playoffs. And I know everybody knows this, but Matthews, Marner, these guys, they're not responsible for, all the years in between 2017 and 2004 where the Leafs couldn't make a series, couldn't make the playoffs. They're not responsible for any of that. They're not responsible for the long droughts we've had. They're obviously responsible 2017 and onwards for not getting it done, but that is clearly the organization, the ownership, the GMs not taking it seriously to put a competitive team on the ice ever since 2004. 2004, I was 9 years old. I still remember it. I remember my dad's apartment is on Yonge Street. I remember going to bed after, I think it was it Joe Nieuwendyk? Scored 2 goals on Patrick Lalime in a 4-1 lead, or a 4-1 win with the Ottawa Senators in Game 7. I remember listening to all the cars on the streets, going up and down Yonge Street, honking their horns, cheering for the Leafs. I remember it vividly, but man, that was a long time ago. 9 years old. I'm 27. That's really sad. Really sad. But again, that's not on Matthews. It's not on Marner. It's not on Dubas. It's not on Shanahan. But this group that we have now needs to figure out a way to get it done, because they earned a pass for me this year, but next year they might not be so lucky. At some point, you need to get it done. Some way, somehow. Because teams do that. Teams that maybe don't deserve to win series find a way to get it done. This team has not been able to do that yet. But what a privilege it was to watch this team for a year. Matthews, 60 goals. A 60-goal season for Matthews. In a season that he missed games for suspension and injury and rest. 60 goals. Marner with over 100 points. Campbell with stretches of bad, but stretches of being a Vezina caliber goaltender. Riley, under the radar as one of the better defensemen in the league this year. Our depth players, Pierre Engvall stepping up and playing incredibly throughout the regular season after being the worst player by far on the team last year. That was a lot of fun. It was a great season, and I'm going to miss this team. But we'll have them again in October, and it might look a little bit different. Maybe Willie's not on the team. Maybe Justin Hall's not on the team. Do we re-sign Campbell? Do we re-sign Mikheyev? Andrzej Kasha is a restricted free agent. Which of the young guys gets to step in? Will we have Matthew Nyes? Will we have Steves? Will we have Robertson? Will we have Niemela? Sandin and Liljegren. Sandin didn't play a game in the postseason, but he was one of our better defenders all year. Do we bring back Lyubushkin? Do we bring back Giordano? Still lots of questions and lots of opportunity to be talking about the Leafs in the offseason, but it's still sad. It sucks. It sucks. But they'll do it one day. I was sure it was this year. I was sure of it, but they'll do it one day. So let me know your thoughts. How are you feeling, Leafs Nation? Are you feeling like I felt last year after Montreal? Are you feeling how I feel now? Are you feeling better than how I feel now? I mean, I'm still crushed that we didn't get it done, but I'm curious to hear how you think. How are you doing? So let me know, and I guess we'll continue making these videos to talk about what's next in Leafs Nation. Thanks for watching.